Hi, I'm Claire.
I'm Jack. I'm sure you all know us.
Maybe. And yeah, we're going to talk about finals prep. I know it's a little bit way off for you and things are a bit confusing at the moment with what's happening, but we'll give you a little bit of, or try to give you some idea of what we did, what helped, etc.
Yeah. If you got any questions, just God knows, there's a raise your hand option. I don't know what that looks like. Stick your questions in the chat, and we'll somehow get to them.
Right. So this is what exams look like for us, but obviously yours with the current mess up is going to probably look significantly different. I'm assuming you probably have the prescribing exam at the same time, the PSA and the Warwick one, but the other ones, so we had a week between each of our OSCEs, MCQs and OSLERS, but I think from what I've heard, you guys are going to have it condensed quite a bit. So, and obviously you're going to have it at a slightly different time of year. So perhaps ignore this, I don't know.
Yeah, it's worth having there just to kind of see what kind of things come up. I'm sure you know what you're expecting in terms of what exams there are. Yeah, we'll talk about them. We're just going to go through them in detail, like each one, and then just some general tips at the end. If you've got any other questions, you can always email us at the start or anything. Yeah.
So the Warwick prescribing one, I mean, it says it on the screen. It's 5 questions. 2 of them are drug card X's, which you basically just copy stuff. There's 2 TTOs to be written up, which from all the practice ones we did, it was one that had controlled drugs on it and one was some pediatric prescribing. And then my favourite one was the spot the error question, because it felt like spot the difference. It was quite nice. And then you've only got 75 minutes to do it. So I found that I didn't really have any spare time, but there are plenty of past papers. Some of them are a different format to what we've done on what you'll be expected to do, but it's good practice anyway.
Yeah, so just to add to that, if you don't know what a TTO is, it's like a discharge summary. So it's like the informal term that everyone says for discharge summary. So that's what we get taught to do when you write at the bottom, and you've got to write in words and figures, like controlled drugs and things like that.
It's just a bit of advice. I don't know. Jack, do you want to talk through it? Or?
Yeah, I can do. So I don't want to like downplay the Warwick prescribing exam too much. So literally, when you get to the exam, it'll say you need to prescribe these drugs, okay? And the only thing that will be challenging will be that perhaps sometimes they'll give you like, oh, this person's EGFR is like 30, and you need to go and check whether they can still have ramipril, for instance. But it's literally a case of copying the drugs into the correct boxes, making sure you use capital letters in the for the drug name, putting the right route, the right dose. Don't write out U for units. Don't write out MCG for micrograms. Just write it all out and just do it as they said, and you should be absolutely fine, to be honest. I didn't really use the BNF much at all because, as I said, most of it is kind of like copying and writing down. So a lot of people did like go crazy and tab all their BNFs. I personally didn't, but some people find that helpful. Just for the other prescribing exam, you don't get to use your BNF, you get a brand new BNF. So if it'll help you, go for it, do it. But this is definitely the easiest of all the exams that we have to do. Everyone passes. I don't know anyone that's failed it at all. Yeah.
Pass marks. I mean, the pass rate was something like stupid, with most people getting about 90%. So don't beat yourself up over it. It's fine. I tabbed my BNF, but I literally only had a few tabs in it, just so I could find the easy bits.
Another thing. Oh, sorry, Claire.
It was more like the controlled drugs, remembering how to write them. So make some of the pages at the front having them tabbed, but otherwise most of it's stuff that you'll have come across 1,000 times before.
Also, what I found was quite helpful, although I found it helpful to prepare, but for the actual exam, it didn't come in much. But it might for you guys. Like, we never had anything like insulin prescriptions, but that's what I was kind of a bit worried about. So in your BNF, on the front and back cover, you can actually write out an example for the controlled drug. So you can write out morphine sulfate, oral solution, and then write out words and figures. So you've got an example there. So if you get something like that, you can literally just copy it, and you're allowed to do that. And you can do that for insulin. You can do that for anything really.
Yeah. Your sticky tabs that you write in there, there's no rules on how big your sticky tab can be, so you can get inventive as well.
Also, so for your names and stuff, they give you like a sheet of stickers, like the ones that you see in hospital. They give you a sheet of stickers with patient names. Like, the biggest risk is that you fuck up and put the wrong person's name on the wrong bit of the Cardex, but I'm sure you can all read. My advice would be, what I usually do with exams is do all the ones I can do until the end and then go back and do the ones I can't do, but make sure I've put an answer for everything. For this one, I would just take your time with each question and make sure that everything you're writing in, you're kind of checking, just to make, because it's very easy to get little errors that can have an effect.
Yep. That's about it for the war. Just don't beat yourself up over this one. Kind of get it done, get it out of the way. Yeah. It was nice to have an exam done before we went into the main lot of it. Then what came up next? Oh,
We've not talked anything about the SJT, by the way. I think there is another SJT session. Am I right, Sylvia?
Yeah, there was.
Okay, great. So we're not going to touch on that
then. So OSCE's pretty much the same setup as you've been used to before. It'll be a morning or afternoon session at UH. It's 10 stations and they're 7 minutes each, and they increased the amount of change over time. So I've written 3 minutes. I think it was 3 minutes, but I've tried to block it out now, so I can't necessarily remember. But it felt like I was standing there forever between stations. Yeah. And then some advice. So yeah, again, pretty similar to second year, with a heavy emphasis on communication, to be honest, rather than the procedural skills, which there was still a lot of, including a male catheterization, which was just a nightmare. But it was all otherwise exactly the same. There's some good lists out there. So I used one on Almost Doctors, and it gives you a really comprehensive list, like hundreds of potential OSCEs that can come up. Obviously, some of these are less likely than others. And then the OSCE stop guides, they're really good. Actually, I use them quite a lot. Jack, you got?
Yeah, so with communication, I kind of just practiced. Someone in our year compiled like a PowerPoint of our learning outcomes that say communicate this to a patient or explain this to a patient. And then I amended it to put like the answers in the comments. So if you want, I can send that to Silva and she can send it to you, or is that a thing?
Don't know.
It can be a thing if you want it to be a thing.
Yeah, I would like it to be a thing. I can send that on. With regards to that, just kind of practice with your mates. I would say just chat with them about how to. There's things that are a little bit more rogue than the second year ones. Like we had a station on a patient who wanted to die and wanted to go home to die, and we had to counsel him on DNA CPR, respect forms, other wishes such as ITU and escalation. So it's things like that that you don't usually get in second year that are a bit more rogue. There's a lot built in as well. They will kind of stop you at periods to ask different things.
We had one on Huntington's as well, about explaining the inheritance of that and testing and prognosis, etc., which was a bit of a curveball as well.
There's some like that you like. you'd find it quite hard to prepare for unless you'd kind of gone over it. Do the same as second year, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not that big a step up. If you've still been going to hospital and learning anything, then you'll manage it. It's fine. And then MCQs came next.
Do you want me to go through these?
Yeah, you can do.
It's the same as you've always had MCQs. They're going to grill you on loads of papers. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but as it says here, like we had 200 question papers. The stems are fairly long, but we're going to mention on the next slide about past medicine, but that's probably the most key resource that everyone uses. I'm sure you all know about that. You can kind of pick out key things from the stems to be able to kind of give you a hint to what the actual answer is. Yeah, so kind of look out for those things because there'll be a lot of waffle in some of the stems as well. You're going to get your rogue questions. You're going to get your weird stuff that no one knows, but most of the things that are on there are kind of your normal medicine-y stuff. We had like BCC stuff, like ECG things, asthma. We did have quite a lot of bread and butter and inverted commas stuff. So make sure you just read the question.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I said, past medicine, really good. I've never used past test. Do you want to speak about that?
Yeah, so I use them. They've got so I use past medicine and past test. Past test are the one to make you feel a bit better. The questions the questions are a bit shorter and sometimes a bit easier, but they've got an app that you can. They're not necessarily. They are still worth doing, and you can get through a lot of them quite quickly. But the good thing about it is the app that you can download, and you can download like 100 question exam almost to do, and that you can have that offline. And I found that really good for when I was sat in the bowels of UH, bored out of my mind in a clinic, or when you're in GP and you don't necessarily have Wi-Fi or something. So that was quite good. And they also explained things really well. So they gave all of the answers to and explained exactly why it wasn't something and it was the other one. Not quite so nice was a little bar across the top that showed red and green and how many you got right and how many you got wrong. Mine was quite red a lot of the time, but we got better.
Yeah, again, like I think this is the same for all of medicine, but try not to compare yourself to everyone else who's like, oh, I'm doing really badly, or I can't cope, I've only got 80% on pass med, oh God, cry. It's like, just ignore those people and do you. Even if you've got a crap average on it, which I had, you're still learning. The whole point of it is to see the questions and kind of absorb the information in the kind of style of questions that you have. With regards to like SOC Pop VLE, SOC Pop, the calculation-y stuff is quite examinable in an MCQ. Also, there's quite a bit of VLE as well. They ask quite a bit of. There was a few rogue questions about what you do in like whether a patient should be sent to the coroner. There was
about refugees and how you're supposed to charge them for money for using the NHS or something.
Yeah, those kind of ones will be hard to prepare for. But if you kind of go over the laws and things in VLE, that should stand you in good stead. But otherwise, it's just your standard pass med and revising. I tried to go through management of simple conditions as well. So things like your heart failure, your COPD and stuff, that will always stand you in good stead for OSCEs, OSLERS and writtens. So it's good to kind of have those basic things down.
Yeah. The med school will release some practice papers to you at some point. So you'll have, or we had a mock finals exam, was it about June? sometime.
Yeah, June or August or something like that.
Yeah, it was quite early on. But actually, I think most people came out of it going, "Oh, that wasn't as terrible as I thought it could be." And then they'll release all the other practice papers that we got given as well. And actually, I came away. I did them a lot closer to the exams after I'd done most of my revision, and I came away from it feeling a lot brighter. Apart from one of them, so. That was a complete anomaly. I can't remember which one it is, so I can't tell you either.
You'll know which one because you'll go through and be like, don't know, don't know, don't know. So
That's about it on MCQs. So, sorry.
We have a couple of questions actually,
Yeah.
if you're willing.
yeah,
So sorry. So one of them is, for the OSCE on the dying patient, were there any prompts on the door?
there's always a prompt on the door, but I think it was, oh God, I can't even remember. I think it was something like, it was like end of life or something. So you had to just talk to them about end of life and about their wishes. I think it was quite a vague one. I don't think they specifically said anything about respect forms or anything. I think they expected you to be able to bring that up and have that conversation with them. It's a bit ridiculous because you're never going to go to a patient in 7 minutes and be like, "Oh yeah, do you want to get resuscitated?" No, okay, great, fine.
I think it was something like I had a youngish looking man as well for mine, but it was someone with, I think, terminal bowel cancer or something, and he just wanted to go home and spend time with his dog. So it was one that you could probably, as long as you know some of your VLE stuff, like your DNA CPR, respecting wishes, autonomy, etc. If you know those things, then you can probably blag it.
They also asked what law governs that, didn't they?
Yes, I can't remember if I said what I said for that either.
I think it was something like you had to talk about the Mental Capacity Act. I think it was Mental Capacity Act. About, making their own decisions and lasting power of attorney and that kind of thing.
It's as with everything. If you know, with the stuff that it's VLE, so you just kind of need to know it. Which hopefully you do because you've reached third year, so most of that's been examined at some point in the past. They don't teach you anything new VLE wise now. It's all the other old stuff that they just keep rehashing. So
grand. And that brings us to the second question as well, which is there a list somewhere of all the SOCPOP/VLE learning outcomes for finals? I don't remember.
I have not seen one, but they don't, as Claire said, they don't really teach you anything new, SOCPOP VLE. As I'm aware, it's all kind of the same stuff that's been taught in first and second year. I don't know of how much revision I did for it. I can't say I did loads. I definitely went over calculations, and I kind of hope that my knowledge of VLE would get me by, because I thought the written stuff was more, the kind of management and that kind of stuff was more important to know about for me than the SOCPOP stuff, as in I needed more work on that than I did the SOCPOP stuff. Don't know about you, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, the volume of VLE and SOCPOP stuff compared to like the actual medicine was minimal. So I think the stuff that you've learned in first and second year, sorry, that's pretty much all the VLE SOCPOP you're going to get. I think they throw in some random stuff in final year, but really you're probably better off if you've got to make a decision about where you're going to spend your time. Maybe spend half a day to a day looking at some VLE stuff and just refreshing it, but for the most part just ploughing on with the medicine, because that's where most of the points are going to be.
Do you want to start? Is there anything else, Silver?
No, that was it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So up last we had OSLERS, so that's over a whole week. Don't worry, you don't have to go in every day of the week. So you get 6 cases. You have to do 1 full day and then 1 half day. So I had a full day at UH and then on the Monday, and then I had a half day at George Eliot in the morning on the Wednesday. And you get 4 cases on the full day, 2 cases on the half day. And I don't know how many of you would have had a proper kind of exam style mock OSLER yet, because it all varies depending on which consultants you had before this whole COVID shit happened. But the OSLER itself is supposed to be 15 minutes, which is history exam, so 10-minute history, 5-minute exam, then your thinking time, and then you have to present back, and then whatever random communication station that they make up for you.
Yeah, so I had my full day on the Wednesday, on Monday at George Eliot, and then I had a half day at UH on, was it Wednesday or Thursday? I can't remember. I tried to block the UH half day out because it was an absolute nightmare, but I'll come to that.
You should have tried having a full day at UH. It was interesting. Okie dokie. Take lunch, take snacks, take plenty of water with you. You can keep those in the room with you. The setup's a bit, so they keep you isolated in a room. So you've got a bunch of other people, and you're at least at UH, you've got desks that you all have to sit at, and it's almost COVID style. You have to stay a certain distance away from people and not talk to them, and someone's listening to your conversations. So it's worth during the breaks to have something to read or some drawing to do if you're that way inclined and creative, or someone took a pack of cards and was playing solitaire with themselves.
So at George Eliot, it was very similar, but they did give us lunch because it's George Eliot and they're nice. Swift and George Eliot, from what I've heard, were a lot more chilled than UH. It felt like a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere. Obviously, it was still exam conditions, but I felt a lot more stressed at UH than I did at George Eliot. Yeah, so they had like board games on the table. There was like Scrabble and
George Eliot were amazing.
Like they were giving us like free sweets and everything, and yeah, it was a really nice. I actually quite enjoyed. Well, I didn't enjoy the day, but it felt like the best it could have been.
So don't worry too much about getting the actual diagnosis. I didn't get it on one of them that I had up. It was some really messed up peripheral neuropathy thing, and the guy just kept saying no to every single question that I asked him, which was extremely frustrating. But as long as you look like you're trying to systematically rule out diagnoses and trying to come to a conclusion about something, you'll get points for it, because I mean, sometimes it's medicine. You're not going to know everything, so just follow the process, the history taking that you've been taught, and you'll be fine. And they don't care if you don't get the diagnosis in the end, because sometimes you're not going to. You're expected to show up to F1 level. So if you don't know something that even a registrar is going to struggle to get, who cares? It's not going to stop you from passing the exam.
Yeah, don't worry if you feel like you mess up 1 or 2 stations. You can accrue quite a few more points than you think. As you can see there, those were my stations. One guess on which one I fucked up. Yeah, so you can come out of it and think, oh my god, that was horrendous, but actually, even if you do get some C- D grades, it doesn't affect your overall passing.
Yeah.
With regards to exams, we kind of learned these on the grapevine that we should learn them. So a diabetic foot exam, Geeky Medics has a really good video for that. So yeah, it's literally just like test the sensation, look at the vascularization of the foot, look between all the toes for ulcers, look around the foot and leg for ulcers, check for any cellulitis, and then yeah, check sensation, check the pulses. That's pretty much it. Lymphoreticular exam is odd. It's like an examination of all the lymph nodes. So you need to, in the body, so you need to do cervical lymph nodes, axillary lymph nodes on the anterior cubital fossa. Who knew they were there? Not me. You need to check for hepatosplenomegaly, and then offer to do like inguinal lymph nodes as well. What else? Stoma exam. So they get you to kind of like look around the stoma site. You need to like talk about the stoma, look at the contents of the stoma, look around the actual opening of the stoma, see if it's if the intestines, it's like flush with the skin or whether it protrudes. Yeah, look around the site, kind of do a normal abdominal exam, but with the added features. Hernia exam is kind of similar. You feel the hernia, look around, do an abdo exam, get them to cough, see if you can reduce it, try and find the size of the hole, the kind of like the defect. Most of these I think can be found on Geeky Medics as well. Peripheral vascular exam is what it says on the tin. There's a couple of special tests that we'd not been taught that you might want to look into as well. A developmental assessment is looking at your developmental milestones, but just kind of, if you do get that, I never had it, but just try and like just play with the child a little bit and see whether you can get them to build blocks and things. They might not expect you to finish the whole exam. They just want to see that, you know, how you interact with the child and you know, how you get on with them, whether you're able to get them to do anything or whether you're able to assess stuff. Even just looking at the child and if they're running behind their mum or anything, or being scared, you know, if they've ran, that's a sign of their gross motor skills. You can kind of comment on their social skill, social development. You can comment on fine motor stuff if you get them to draw, little things like that. I just thought those were important to kind of say because I just found them out on the grapevine. Have you got anything else to say, Claire?
And just to practice anything that you think that could come up that is a common presentation, regardless of what the exam is. You know, make sure you're familiar with it. Don't think, oh, they can't ask us to do that because that would be an intimate exam, because they've got models for all of these things. So they've got fake bums, fake vaginas, whatnot. So don't, make sure that you're familiar with those and you haven't discounted them. I think you've probably had or will have some practice with some of the models at some point along the way. The gynae exam ones in particular are worth, if they've got them available, practicing with, because they're quite stiff and they will break a speculum. I've never used one before. And then with the moving on to the bits at the end, so the communication stations at the end of the OSLERS, most of them are quite simple actually. It's explaining what medications they're going to be on, or consenting them for a procedure to some extent. It's all things that you've probably seen your consultant do, or the registrar, and any of the other doctors that you've been with. They're all, as long as you can talk to a patient like a normal human being, which I'm going to say that you all can because you got on the course, hopefully, fingers crossed. You should be able to talk through it for a few minutes. I trust you're right.
With the presentation that I amended, there's a lot of explanations on there, like pacemaker fitting, having like angiograms, bone marrow biopsy, and I've put links into the patient communication things they have on NHS Choices on there, so you can kind of get to grips with a patient way of explaining it. Another thing I put at the bottom here was there's a whole host of OSLER cases that someone at Newcastle Uni made that I only got told about from one of my friends from home. It's really good. I used it towards the end. Annoyingly, didn't get it any earlier, but yeah, it's great. I don't know if we actually went through exactly what happens on the day. We did a bit, but like for what happens in each single step. So you sit in this room isolated, then you get taken to your kind of room. You sit outside the room on a chair. The bell will ring. You'll go in. You'll have your 10 minutes. Then the bell will ring again. Then they'll stop you regardless of where you are. They'll get you to do an examination for 5 minutes, and then the bell will ring. You'll leave, and then you'll get taken to a room where there's individual desks. You'll sit at the desk. Then you'll have to wait until the other team, like, because you kind of, when one set's in, the other set is waiting, and then you rotate. You have to wait until the bell rings, until the other team's gone into their rooms. Then you have 15 minutes of thinking time where you can write notes or whatever, and you can take them in with you. With regards to drug histories, they usually give you like a written list of medications, so you don't have to faff about asking all their medications. They'll just give you a prescription, and you can take that with you. And then when the 15 minutes is done, the bell will ring, you'll stop writing, then you'll get taken back to your rooms, and the other team will get brought into the thinking room, and then you'll sit outside your room again, bell will go, you'll go in, then they'll grill you for 10 minutes, and then they'll ask you to say something to the patient for 5 minutes, and the bell will go, and that'll be your OSCE station done. Sorry, OSLERS station. Then you get moved on to the next 4. You have 2, then a break, then 2. 1, then a break, then 1, then lunch, then 1, then a break, then 1. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
If you're in the early group, you tend to so you don't have a choice in which group you're in, but so if you're in the early group, you tend to finish earlier. It'd be good to be in that. I was never in the early group. I never finished early, and you don't have any choice if you are, but if you can, well, if you do end up in there, well done. The other thing I was going to say about the communication stations, don't panic if you don't know, if it all flies out your brain about, oh, how do I explain what an OGD is to someone? Because again, you're only expected to be up to F1 level. You should know what an OGD is, but if you don't know the exact things that you're supposed to that happen during it, tell them, because you're not the one doing the OGD. Ultimately, you shouldn't really be the one consenting for someone in real. You won't be consenting them for it because you're not doing the procedure yourself. So if you don't know something, just tell them honestly. Say, I've never performed this procedure myself. I've only seen it a couple of times, so I can talk you through what I know of it.
Yeah.
I
completely agree with that.
But don't make stuff up if you don't know, because the examiners will know, and that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah, always offer them a leaflet as well and say, like, I don't know, but I can tell you what I do know, and I have this leaflet, and then pretend to give them a leaflet. That always looks good. And say, if you've got any more questions, I can get my senior, or I can bring you back in if it's like a GP setting. I can bring you back in to talk about it, or something along those lines.
Yep. Sylvia, were there any questions before we move on?
I feel like we've gone on about OSLERS a lot.
So we do have one. It's about MCQs. And it was just saying, was there much pharmacology in the MCQs?
There was some. Yeah. I'd say there was there was some. Yeah. I wouldn't say there was loads, but I would say it was proportional to what you've had previously. They're more likely to ask, like, what is the most likely drug to prescribe in this management, or what is the best initial management here? And then they'll give you a list of drugs that are in the management, but perhaps are. So, for instance, we had a question on heart on atrial fibrillation, and the patient had asthma or something, and you had a whole host of things, of options. So there'd be like a beta blocker on there, calcium channel blocker, digoxin, amiodarone, and flecainide, for instance. And you had to work out that you had to rate control the person, and that because they had asthma, you can give them nifedipine. Because they've got asthma, and you don't give them a beta blocker. So it's things like that. They'll kind of ask you it in terms of management, as opposed to like, what does this drug do? there wasn't a lot of like modes of action or anything like that, was there?
No, there's not much in the like pure pharmacology, like which receptors is this going to have. I don't actually think there was anything like that, asking you the actual mode of action and half-lives, etc. It's all all of the questions for the most part were clinical, so knowledge that you should have anyway. Is that all right?
Any other questions, Silva?
No others so far.
Cool.
So from the last exams, the PSA, which is the national prescribing exam, it's not one that you have to pass first time. There's multiple takes at it. It's one you have to pass before you can prescribe in foundation program. So it's worth passing first time if you can. It's exactly the same as the mock paper that you do. I can't remember when. And there's loads of practice bits. There's the actual PSA website's got some extra questions and which you can get familiar with. And yeah, it's not a terrible exam. And yeah, by that point, well, actually, you guys will probably be doing the PSA before your writtens, before the main lot. But it was quite nice. I felt that we'd already done OSLERS, writtens, and OSCEs by that point, and the PSA. Most people were like, not really bothered by that now, and we just kind of turned up and did it. Or at least that's how I did it.
Yeah, but that's kind of it. Like a lot of the past papers are really good that they provide. They're kind of exactly what you get examined on. Yeah, the script modules perhaps helpful with the calculations part. I think perhaps they go into a little bit more detail than you need for that exam. So I'd advise if you struggle with the calculations to do the script modules. I was fine with the calculations because I did chemistry as my first degree. So I've said there, I'm happy to help if you need any advice or anything. Yeah, that's all. Claire said everything.
The script modules, just from a practicality point of view, if you're doing any of the core ones that have got the flags on them, don't do them until after August, because then if you've done them after August, you can print off or save the certificates and you can use them for F1. So hold fire on those for now, because you have to do script modules in F1, the compulsory ones. But most deaneries, if you've done it within 12 months of starting F1, you don't have to repeat it. So that's just a purely practicalities one. Wait until August to do them, whereas you're going to have to do them all over again. Which I only found out in the last few weeks, which is really annoying because I'd done a load of them in April. Yeah, anything else to add, Jack?
I don't think so with regards to PSA. It's kind of what it says on the tin, really. It's a little bit more challenging than the Warwick prescribing, but then, writing my name on a bit of paper is more challenging than that. So.
So just general advice now. So the exam period is, well, for us at least, it was really long. You guys are going to have some of your placements up and after Christmas. So I'm not quite sure on the timings for you, but we had we broke for Christmas, and then we had nothing until exams. We had having to come in occasionally for a revision thing or to see the GMC to sign up for that. But very much, it was about 8 or 9 weeks of revision, full stop. So it's not very nice, and you feel like it's going on forever. And at some point you're thinking, I just can't do this. I can't be bothered. It's not worth it anymore, etc. But it does end eventually, and it is worth it, and you can do it. You just need to pace yourself. Don't go don't go hell for leather straight away. Build up into it, and it doesn't matter if you spend 3 days on the sofa watching Netflix, because you probably needed it.
I find you like reach a natural point of saturation. I mean, I feel like my natural point of saturation was probably year 2, but yeah, you kind of revise so much that you start to go over the same things, and then you're worried about one other thing, that the thing that you learned yesterday has pushed the old thing out your brain, so you want to go back and do that, and it's like a constant cycle of, oh, I've not done that, or I've not covered this, or I've not covered that. Like, try and like reassure yourself that you'll have gone over enough and that you have enough base knowledge to be able to do it. With regards to things that are on here, just yeah, make sure you try and mix up your revision. I thought that really helped because, you know, sitting doing past med forever makes you want to just cry. Do some clinical revision in amongst it as well, because unlike previous years where you could finish your writtens and then do your OSCEs, you can't do that this year. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we had our OSCEs first, so you need to kind of keep everything up. But the good thing about revising for finals is that if you do writtens or OSCEs or OSLER revision, they all kind of help each other. So even if you're revising one thing, you're not missing out on the other. Yeah, don't fall over in the mud before mock OSLER. That's what I did. Had to get changed into scrubs. It wasn't great. I was stressed. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Has anyone? You got anything else to say, Claire?
Not really. That pretty much covers it. Just don't get too stressed out of it. I mean, it's only May. You've got a year pretty much before you're going to take your exams. Don't worry about it too much at the moment. I tried not to think about it too much until it was around about December, and even then I tried to put it off until after Christmas so I could at least enjoy stuff in my face without stressing too much.
I don't know what's going to go on with your clinical stuff, but I would really advise, this might be a bit controversial, but I would really advise not going to clinics. What I would advise instead is getting your clinical partner or getting one of your friends even, go on the ward and examine patients and ask to just say, can I go around and examine the patients, like, and just do an abdo exam, like loads of abdo exams or loads of resp exams, or because that's the stuff, getting comfortable with doing resp exams and cardio exams, that's the stuff that will help. And take histories from those and kind of do mock OSLERS, because you know that's the stuff that's directly related to the job that you'll be doing and the exams that you'll be doing as well. Clinics, I don't know how much I got from clinics. I wouldn't say they were that helpful towards the end. I don't know if you'd agree, Claire.
No, for the most part, clinics are a bit pants. I mean, there are some where you might get little bits. So, like rheumatology clinic, I actually found that helpful, but I don't know if that was just my consultant who's retiring, so you guys probably won't see him anyway. But he very much got you examining patients, and rheumatology kind of covers everything. So that was reasonable. And some of your more specific clinics that through your rotations, you'll probably have to go to a certain clinic, like you have to go to a breast clinic, you have to go to a vascular clinic. These ones are, I mean, they're compulsory anyway, but they're also kind of useful. So like the vascular one, the vascular surgeons will teach you a peripheral vascular, how to do an exam, which is probably better coming from them than some of the CEFs, because they probably haven't done it in years, whereas actually these surgeons are doing it every day. So you might get a bit better with those, but general clinics, no. So either go to the wards or go home and learn something. You're better off doing it that way.
Is Silver gone?
I don't know.
If anyone's got any questions that we've missed in the chat because we can't see the chat, do you want to just put your mic on and say? I'm excited for the silence of, will there be a question or won't there be a question? Oh, Silver says there is a question. Where is she? Are you here, Silver?
She's still there.
Oh, She says, do you guys ever feel ready to be doctors?
No.
Um,
I'm feeling more comfortable now, but we've been doing it. We've been in assistantship for what, 2 months now.
yeah.
And
I think
yeah,
I think in medicine you never feel comfortable, and it's quite right that you should never feel comfortable, really. I still feel like I don't have enough knowledge, even though I've passed finals, and you'll see patients and you think, oh, I feel thick, and then you compare yourself to your peers, and then you feel thick, and then you can't do bloods when you first start, and then you feel thick. Yeah, you do kind of feel thick, but you'd be surprised at how much you learn when you're doing the assistantship and doing the job. I feel like I've come a long way in 2 months. Like, I'm able to do nearly all of the administrative tasks of an F1 now. Talking to patients and examining patients and knowing what you need to do on the wards is one of those things that you can't learn at med school. You need to actually just be immersed in it, in my opinion, to be able to learn it. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, oh, I can't take a blood, because no one can take a blood when they start. Like, you just have to do loads of them to get better at it. That really is the only way to do it.
it's unfortunately the learning how to do the job thing isn't something that med school greatly prepares you for.
No.
I think we've been somewhat lucky with our assistantship that actually we're going to go into F1 knowing how to do the job pretty much, which sounds like a bit of a boast because you guys probably won't have that opportunity. But yeah.
It's hard because med school teaches you the theory of medicine, and then when you get into work, you learn what you actually do as a doctor, because you don't know anything really about what it actually entails being an F1 until you actually start doing it, and how the hospital works and who people are. Like, I didn't even know we had an integrated discharge team that sorts out patients when they're going to be discharged and rings families and rings social care and things like that. And there's all these other team members that you just don't know about, and the process of how a patient goes through the hospital, what happens to TTOs when they get sent off. Little things like that just take time.
The knowing the tricks in how to write a referral to gastro to get them to come and review your patient, or just even phoning the cardiology reg and wanting them to come up and review your patient. These are all things that I think when I took finals, I thought, oh no, that's perfectly fine. I'll just ring someone and they'll go, oh, yeah, give an F bar, and they'll be like, yeah, of course, I'll come and review your patient. Whereas actually they're like, no, not important, and they hang up on you.
Yeah, they're like, did they have an echo in 2013? You're like, I don't know, because I don't really know this patient. I've just been asked to refer them. Yeah, you're gonna have times when you just feel stupid like that, but it's part and parcel of the job. Like, I think anyone who says it's not is lying, or is not saying, is not like being open about how scared they've been at the start or how inept they feel at the start.
Yeah, I feel fine-ish now. I can do nearly all of the jobs that I'm expected to do, but definitely when I started assistantship, I kind of just followed the rest of the team round like a lost puppy, and they'd ask me to do something. I'll be like, oh yeah, I can definitely do some bloods. Yeah, I think I know how to do that. Whereas now I feel like I'm doing most of the jobs myself, but it'll be the same for you guys. And there's no point necessarily worrying about it now, because you've got more important things like finals that you need to pass before you get there. And everyone's been through that. Everyone expects you to feel like you're a little bit out of your depth. You're probably not out of your depth, but you're going to feel like it. So just don't worry about that at the moment. Yeah.
Any other questions?
There aren't any in the chat.
Okay.
Fine.
Anyone else got any other questions before we sign off? We've got our emails there, so you can always email us. I see, Claire, you've got yourself a little doctor's email already. Bit sharp, but
I've had that for a couple of years now, actually. So sod you, Jack.
okay. Okay. Well, thanks very much for listening to us rattle on for ages. If you've got any other questions, just send us an email or a Facebook message or whatever. Or chat to Silva. With regards to that presentation, I'll send it to Silva now, and she can kind of distribute it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got it saved on mine actually, Jack, so I'll email it.
Cool.
Fine.
You guys are getting a lot of thank yous.
Oh, no, thank
You did a
you.
great job.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Right.
Enjoy the rest of your lockdown. And good luck with your exams. If I don't see any of you again, I'll speak to any of you again.
Yeah, same. You'll probably see me a lot more because I'm staying in the area, but good luck, etc. Yep. Oh, they're all leaving. Right, I'm going to go now then. Bye, Jack.
Yeah. Bye, Claire. Bye, everyone.
Bye.